not Candyman, it's Kilt-Man! Hey, how are we all? We're doing very, very well. Oh, hook for a hand, eh? Picking your nose, playing with your bits. Bloody hell. Risky business. Oh! Sweets for the sweet. I've got some love hearts. Hey folks, how are you all? Hope you're doing very well. Let's get rid of this. You know, unless you're going into pantomime or piracy, not much call for one of these. So, hope you're all doing very, very well. Now, the last video I did seems like a long time ago. I know. And I was discussing how I was going to go and see the new version of Candyman, or rather the sequel to Candyman, called simply Candyman. Yeah. This was the Naya de Costa, got it written down there, directed version, and it was written by Jordan Peele and the director and somebody else. And I was discussing just how in two minds I was about it, because it's had such thunderously bad reviews worldwide, people leaving the cinema in droves apparently. Critics are kind of going, yeah, it's okay. People are going, it's too woke, it's too heavily saturated with persecuting whites for persecuting blacks, and it's reversing the whole thing, and it's not very scary, and it's not very good. And I thought, no, I do love the original 1992 version from director Bernard Rose, with the great Tony Todd and Virginia Madsen and Xander Berkeley. I do like that version a lot. It's badly flawed. It's hailed as an absolute masterpiece, I know, but it's got a lot of failings. It absolutely fudges its own mythology in many different ways. But hey, look, it still works as a brand new sort of neon gothic edifice of cinema. And this version, I thought, well, at the very least, I need to go and have a look myself. I'm playing, once again, the soundtrack by Robert Akey Aubrey Lowe. That's a mouthful, isn't it? And I love this soundtrack. I've been playing it a hell of a lot. And this is what won me over. And I thought, you know, I want to go and see this. See how well it works with the movie itself. Now, I also remember saying on that day of the last video that when I come back after seeing it, I'm going to sit here and review it for you. Spoiler rife. Well, what happened? Stuff happened. You know that thing in life called stuff. Now, the stuff started off with me going into the pub on the way back from the cinema, and then indulging in a rip-roaring rum festival. Yeah, that kind of stuff. But then real life stuff kind of took over. It's been a week of stuff. You know, you open the front door, stuff. Oh, you pick up the phone, stuff. Oh, you open the fridge, stuff. You could try to go to sleep, but there's stuff inside your head not letting you sleep. So real life can be a pain in the ass. So anyway, but we're here now, and stuff out the way. And I've unplugged the phone, so no distractions there. Anyway, what did I think of the movie? Well, I went to a showing, which was a midweek showing during the middle of the day, 12:30, half noon, and there was 11 people in there. Now, you've got to know the schools. Some schools around here have gone back after the summer holidays, so there was a lot less people around. But 11 for the midday showing, and the film had been out for a week anyway, and not getting good word of mouth. So I was surprised it was as many as that in there. And well, before we go any further, did anyone walk out of my showing? Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Two blokes sat a couple of rows in front of me, got up halfway through, walked out, never came back. And a couple who were sitting just a bit behind me got up shortly afterwards, walked out, never came back. I don't normally witness things like that, people walking out of movies. And I do not think the film was bad enough to warrant people walking out, having paid good money to get in there. I genuinely don't. There's a lot of plus points to the movie, there's a lot of negative points to the movie as well. So I'm going to have to get out of this Candyman jacket, by the way, because bloody hell, it's not Candyman's jacket, it's Bane's jacket. Oh, but it's bloody hot in it. So, fare thee well. Now, this movie is a spiritual sequel to Bernard Rose's version. And the original two sequels, Candyman 2, Farewell to the Flesh, Candyman 3, Day of the Dead, they are forgotten about. Just forget, they don't even exist in this this franchise now, and this timeline. And what you find, now this is massively spoiler right, and I'm going to hit straight away on the major thing because otherwise it's going to hamper talking about it. This centres around a black artist struggling to make a living and get recognition for his work, and he's living in the gentrified version of Cabrini Green. Cabrini Green is of course the projects, the housing development, the slum that was the centre of Candyman's Reign of Terror in the original movie from 1992. The Tony Todd version. That's important. We'll come on to that. And he lives in this gorgeous apartment because it's all been built out of the ruins of the old Cabrini Green. So the whole idea of like poverty and suppression being swept under the carpet and then papered over with glass towers and stuff like that, ivory towers. Well, it's kind of on the nose that, but it's, you know, there's a social aspect which needs to be looked at. It's how heavy-handed you think that their approach has been with this. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people make out. Although it comes horribly to a head and does go too far. But we'll come on to that. So his name is Anthony. Anthony. I'm afraid in the UK and many other parts of the world, the name is actually Anthony. It's Ant and then honey. So Anthony. But I can see why people do go Anthony. And you know, Anthony Hopkins on American chat shows, we've got Anthony Hopkins. You're like, it's Anthony, and he doesn't correct him. Alzheimer's. But this guy, we're going to have to call him Anthony because that's it, that they refer to him as that throughout the movie from start to finish. He's played by Yahya Abdul Mateen II. All of a sudden, Anthony doesn't seem that bad, does it? And he played Manta in because of Black Panther. Then it wasn't that; it was Aquaman, and he was great. I like him, and I like him in this. And he's living with Brienne, his girlfriend, and she is a big mover and shaker within the arts world. She puts on exhibitions, she promotes artwork, she's being looked at by other people in different cities for their museums and their exhibitions. Oh, come and work for us. But she's got this guy, and he's good, you know, his artwork is great, but he's looking for a new angle. He's unemployed, so she's looking after him, or Anthony. And her brother, who's a gay, arts-loving black man, he's, you know, he likes Anthony, but he's also like, you know, don't be sponging off me sister, you know, and you know, sell some of these things, you know, make a name for yourself. So Anthony discovers that, hang on, there's this myth of the Candyman. He hears it from various sources, but mainly he hears about how his luxury apartment came to be out of the ashes of the original Cabrini Green, and the gay brother tells him about the story of not so much Candyman from the 1992 version, but he tells about Helen Lyle, who Virginia Madsen played, and how she went crazy, wanted to go in there and do a thesis on, you know, the subjugation of the blacks in the ghettos, and end up going crazy, decapitating a Rottweiler, which is in the movie, kidnapping a baby, killing people, and then building a huge bonfire and wanting to burn the baby in it. But the crowd saved the baby and killed her. And you're like, well, hang on, that's not really what happened, is it? But it's about how, and this is the clever thing about it, it's how stories are reinvented, retold, reinterpreted through the generations. Because that is what happens, urban myths. But Anthony goes and looks into this. He's like, you can't decapitate a Rottweiler. But he finds out, yeah, she did. Oh, shit. Then he reads more into it, and he comes, you know, this whole idea of what happened, why did that happen? Oh, this is where we're living now. So there's also, you've got like the rows and the blocks and the houses, the little sort of sandwich box houses, which were also built there, which you didn't see in the first movie, and they still exist. They haven't been built on top of, and they're still part of Cabrini Green. So he breaks into there because it's all fenced off. He goes into there just to take some pictures and get some inspiration, which he does get, and he meets a guy called Beck. And Beck works in the local laundromat, and Beck is from Cabrini Green. And Beck tells him the story of Candyman. And Anthony's like, what's Candyman? So he tells him the story of Candyman, but from his generation, from 1977. And there's a different Candyman. It wasn't the Tony Todd one. It wasn't Daniel Robertale. How do you pronounce it? Daniel Robertale. Yeah, the original Candyman. His hand hacked off, tortured, the local ruffians, cover him with honey. He's stung to death, and he comes back as an avenging angel. His name, he can be conjured by saying his name 5 times in a mirror. Now, but Burke's version is of a different guy, a guy called Sherman, wearing a Bane-style coat with a hook for a hand, who used to give out candy to the kids in the ghetto. But he wasn't liked. He was kind of shunned by some, adored by others, but he wasn't a bad man at all. And one day, a young girl, a white girl, gets a candy with a razor blade in it. So everyone turns on Sherman. Sherman goes and hides in the walls. So you've got that, the way it goes back to the original movie, the holes in the walls, how they move around and all that, how the apartments are all connected. And he's in there, and Burke, as a young lad, encounters, down in the washroom, the laundry room, you can see how his life got shaped, can't you? And he encounters Sherman. Sherman comes out of a hole in the wall, and with his hook for a hand, he's like, sweets to the sweet, some candy. But the kid just screams because he thinks, oh no, my God, it's him. He's the Candyman. We'll put razor blades in. And there's white police who are outside, who are like, because obviously there's things happening in the area, and they are, an oppressive bunch of sort of right-wing militia police. They hear the screaming, and mob-handed go in there and beat poor Sherman to death. And he's disfigured beyond belief by the beating. But more sweets appear with razor blades in them. So they realise Sherman wasn't the killer. Sherman wasn't the monster that he was painted as being. So it's just whites again beating blacks to death and getting away with it. But the mythology around that builds a Candyman. So Sherman appears throughout most of this movie, and in the flashbacks to back in the day when Burke was around, the Candyman looked not like Tony Todd, but like this Sherman. And throughout most of this movie, that's how Candyman is going to appear, as this Sherman incarnation. Anthony becomes smitten with all this, and he will invoke the spirit of Candyman. But while he's out taking photographs, he gets a bee sting. Right about there. Right about yay bit there. And in a weird touch, a David Cronenbergian touch of body horror, this little lump will become a huge abscess which will affect all of his hand. It'll turn his arm into this horrible sort of, almost like scales, and it will affect all one side of his body, coming to mimic the bee stings which covered the original Daniel Robertale's body from the apiary when he was set upon by the bees and the mob. I started thinking, why don't you go and see a doctor about this? I mean, he does go and see a doctor, but way down the line. And it looks horrible. He keeps picking the scab off it, and it's a good prosthetic effect. It looks totally grotesque. I mean, you've had Jeff Goldblum as the Fly. Now you've got Yahya Abdul-Mateen II as the Bee. And there's a moment where he goes to a library to go and find out more about the Helen Lyle, Virginia Madsen character, because at the university, it's the university library, because she was a postgraduate there, some of her research work is on tapes, so he wants to go and listen to it as well. And he goes in there, and it's a lovely young white girl behind the counter. Oh, I'll just find it for you. And she's clearly smitten with Anthony, and she's, but his hand is plainly on show on the desk, and it's looks like a fucking monstrous bloody hand, And she's like, oh, I'll just get it for you. And she does give him stuff, but she goes to find something else, and he's gone. And she gets up, and she's, I liked him. With that hand? You've got to be kidding. You wouldn't go anywhere fucking near him. Anyway, now because he's summoned this Candyman spirit, people are dying. But what people are dying? The people in the art world, the snobby art critics who didn't like his work, inspired by the grief and the angst of generations of people who've been subjugated and persecuted by elitist whites in this area. So he's he's embraced the whole Candyman mythology, but he's also raking up all the old scabs that were all built upon. That Burke uses the term that it's a stain that'll never go away. Doesn't matter what buildings you put on it, doesn't matter who you move in here, that stain of what happened in the past will always be there, always tainting. And that's a nice aspect to it. But his artwork is still getting picked up on. He has like a mirror in a big exhibition, and which his girlfriend sets up for him. But what is this? You open the mirror and he's got like things behind there mimicking the holes in the walls and like grief and depiction, but they don't like it. They think that's shit, that. So he gets pissed anyway, but storms out. Later on that night, the white guy that put on that exhibition, working in cahoots with Anthony's girlfriend. Well, him and his girlfriend had a few too many drinks, and she goes to the mirror and she invokes Candyman, says the name 5 times. Next thing, they get sliced apart. And in perhaps the goriest moments, she has her throat slashed open with the hook, and then the camera lovingly lingers on the blood gushing out of the severed throat. There are plenty of killings in this movie, but a lot of them happen off screen. Now, what I will say about it is that visually it's great, and clearly the cinematographer and the director, cinematographer's name I haven't written down, I'm sorry, I've forgotten it, but Nia DaCosta, the director, and the cinematographer have obviously worked together. This is set within the world of the arts, of exhibitions, sculptures, paintings, whatever, artistic depictions, and how violence and aggression can be worked through them. But the film itself is mesmerisingly filmed, because the use of form and space, and I don't want to sound like I know what I'm talking about, but the way the shots are composed, it's wonderful to look at. It is like looking at an exhibition where you're kind of standing there going, like, I don't know, what are they trying to say with this? And this is the film. This is how the frame compositions have been set up, and I do like it. The opening of the movie itself mimics the opening of Bernard Rose's Candyman. That had the mesmerising overhead shot slowly traversing all the roads and the freeways and the junctions of Chicago. Well, this does the same thing, but it's gliding along the deck and looking up at these glass and concrete towers, which bend and stretch and become their own living entities, and it's really well done. Another thing about the movie is the use of shadow puppets to depict the previous stories of the various Candymen, because that's the point of this. There isn't just one Candyman, as I've already inferred. You've had the Tony Todd one, you also had the Sherman one, but there's been others as well. Tony Todd, Daniel Robertale was the first, and then in the same area, this crime was revisited on other black people by elitist whites who committed the most horrible atrocities upon them. And then in times of community grief, these spirits are reawoken, summoned forth to get vengeance. Now, in this movie, they get vengeance on the whites, the elitist whites who populate this story. They're the ones who are being killed, be it snobbish art critics, be it art exhibitors, be it a bunch of white, mean girls in a high school toilet, all standing in a line, Candyman, 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 and they will get wiped out as well. I'll talk about that scene in a bit. But in the first, what this does, it's reworking the history of the Candyman into Candymen. So you've basically got a hive of these creatures, these entities. But in Bernard Rose's version, the main people he kills are black. So you kind of like, well, if this is the point of it, how did that work? Well, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, except in the context of Candyman, and this spirit needs people to talk about him. He lives in rumour, in whisper, in conspiracy, in fear. He lives in all the veiled threats that people whisper in each other's ears and street corners. That's how he thrives. And without that, he doesn't exist. He'll just fade away. So you have to have killings and threats and violence and the threat of it for him to exist and come back. But in the first film, it's the threat to their own community, which makes him come back and thrive upon the violence being wrought by others. And then he comes forth and he'll kill blacks from his own neighbourhood. That doesn't make any sense. In this, although it's a bit sledgehammered, boosh, all whites are bastards. It's not quite saying that, But it really doesn't give you many options of white people who are actually any good in this movie. The gay brother, he's got a boyfriend who's white, and he seems to be okay. He doesn't get hurt. But the mean white girls get taken out, the snobby critics and the art exhibitors, and the vicious white cops. And this is where it completely, for me, fell apart. Now, I said it before, the film was written and should have come out before the events of 2020 and Black Lives Matter and, of course, George Floyd and the many other incidents that took place. This film was written before that, so it's not based on any of that. It kind of foretold that sort of thing happening. But you will have a bunch of cops in this, white cops, who are complete and utter twats, but they're stereotypical, cliched, white elitist, gun-toting, shoot first, don't ask any questions at all, just brush it under the carpet. It doesn't matter, he was black anyway. Well, there's a lot, the story should be more in-depth than that. Just to use them as a critical narrative knot in this story is a bit bludgeoning and a bit stupid. Well, again, I keep saying I'll come on to that, and I probably won't. I'll forget all about that. But anyway, Anthony becomes more and more smitten. He sees Sherman everywhere in a mirror. Well, there's the clue. He sees Sherman in a mirror of himself, acting and moving exactly the same way he does. Killings are going on. He's beginning to lose his mind. What's happening? Of course, he goes to see his mother. His estranged mother, who lives on the other side of town. Goes to see her, and it's Vanessa Williams, who played the mother of the baby that got abducted by Candyman in the first movie. The one that Virginia Madsen goes and rescues from the bonfire, killing herself in the process, and in this version is demonised as being an absolute bitch, but that's not what really happened. Vanessa Williams, who doesn't appear to have aged a day since she made that film back in 1992, and she's still got the scar on her arm because she's the one whose Rottweiler gets decapitated by Virginia Madsen, apparently. And then she will also get, like, Virginia Madsen herself, Helen Lyle, will actually, when she wakes up covered in blood, not knowing what's happened, and Vanessa Williams flies at her, "Where's my baby?" And she will cut it with a meat cleaver. Well, that scar is still there. It's a nice touch, it's still there. And then she tells Anthony that, what I told you before about being born in that hospital, because when he does go to the hospital about his scaly arm and his weird condition, and they give him a few jabs, they say, "Oh yeah, you've been here before. What nurses do this?" "Oh yeah, you were born in this hospital, weren't you?" He's like, "No, I was born on the other side of town, on the south side." And she goes, No, you were born here." She goes to see his mother. "Hang on a minute, what's the truth here?" And she says, "Well, that baby that was brought out of the fire, that was you." So he's got a connection to the Tony Todd Candyman, because that version of Candyman abducted the baby, Anthony. So why does he see Sherman all the time when it should be the Tony Todd one? Well, it'll be because they couldn't afford to have Tony Todd in the movie for more than 3 or 4 seconds to put his face on. Yes, you guessed it. Because who's the new Candyman after Sherman and the Tony Todd one, Daniel Robitaille? It's going to be Anthony Candyman. And what's happening is Burke, remember the guy who told him about Candyman, about the Sherman version, and works in the laundromat? It all hinges upon Burke wants Candyman to come back. Cabrini Green may have been built upon, but the blacks are still being suppressed and oppressed. Beaten, arrested, shot, and he's not having it. He wants to reinvoke Candyman. So he's actually fostering this whole thing with Anthony, the unwitting Anthony, whose artwork and brain are now coalescing into the world of Tony Todd's Candyman. So he will be abducted, taken to the old church there. He's now completely all scaled up, looking like a massive bee stings, and in front of his girlfriend, Brienne, who's also been abducted by Burke, he'll saw off Anthony's right hand. He'll lash in one of these into the stump and tie it round with a belt. But to Brienne, I want you to be the witness. Why? Because obviously it's got to be spoken about. People have got to talk about this. That's how you give him life. You've got to make this become rumour, become urban myth, urban legend. You've got to make it grow. You've got to witness this. Why? Why again are we doing this? Candyman clearly already seems to exist. You say his name, 5 times in a mirror as these girls find out, as other people find out. You'll get sliced about. So why have you got to create this other one? How many Candymen do you want running around? It's not like fucking Willy Wonka in a chocolate factory. The candy Oompa Loompas with hooks for hands. I kind of don't get that. But Brienne will escape the bonds, run away into those tunnels beneath the little houses, the little matchbox houses, and she'll get caught by Beck, but she'll stab Beck to bits. Then Anthony will come in, and Anthony. I hate saying that. And the police will suddenly arrive. How the police get there when this entire thing is actually ring fenced off anyway? But the police all arrive, and they just come straight in there, and this is where it gets so fucking stupid. Blam 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 blam. They've got a. How did they know? How did they know what room to go into, what building to go into in the first place? But they come in and they blow Anthony away, so he dies in Brienne's arms, and they drag Brienne off, and he sits in the back of a police car, and this bad twat copper in the front goes like, "Now you're going to get your story right." Now there's a nice element to this, but it's overall fucking stupid. He says, "Now, all the new killings, that guy in there who died in your arms, that was the killer. We got a tip off that he was going to be there. We came in. He went for Officer So-and-so. Officer So-and-so discharged his weapon. Saw the hook for a hand coming at him. And you're going to agree to that, aren't you?" And she's just in shock. Her boyfriend's just been shot to bits in front of her. She just killed somebody else. And she's chained up in the back of the police car. And he goes, "Well, and if you don't say that story, your other story is that you were an accomplice. So you're going to go down for life. So what story are you going to tell?" And that I like that bit, because that is in the essence of this Candyman saga, 1992, and this. It's built upon stories, rumours. I keep saying this, but that he's giving her the option. What story are you going to tell? So she's can I see myself in the mirror? Which is a bit of and he's clearly going, "Fuck you on about. If you want me to tell you the story, let me see myself in the mirror." Oh, so he turns the rearview mirror around so she can see herself. So what does she say? Anthony, Anthony, Anthony. Oh no, she doesn't. She's actually going Candyman. I'm thinking of Xander Berkeley at the end of Candyman, the original Candyman, and he's saying Helen's name in the mirror, which, again, that was just a knee-jerk, stupid, the shock ending of the movie. How does the Candyman mythology transform itself into, Helen Lyle? Helen. And then she comes back and then at the mirror and she kills him. What? You've just reversed, totally inverted the whole point of the Candyman story, just for the sake of a knee-jerk final shock moment. So in this, because now he is Candyman, isn't he? So she doesn't say Anthony, she says Candyman. Says it 4 times, and this cop's going, "The fuck are you on about? Candyman." He says it the 5th time. So then you hear screaming, gunshots from inside this tent, this block, and he's like, "What's going on?" And the cops walk out like sliced up, and then obviously Anthony walks out, but there's a cloud of CGBs which are becoming his face and his head, which don't look very good, and he just kills all the cops, and he opens the door to let his ex-girlfriend out, and he kills the final cop round the corner, but he's saying in Tony Todd's voice, and when the B's clear, it's Tony Todd's de-aged face. For a couple of seconds, "Tell what you've seen here. Tell them what you've seen. Tell them." And of course, there you go. So you've gone through all this. There's a new character who's now become the Tony Todd version of Candyman. So tell me again, what was the point of having Sherman Candyman seen throughout all of this? What was the point of that? Why did you have this whole hive mentality, this hive sort of idea that each new generation, I get that, each new generation has to have a Candyman that's going to be its avenger, it's going to look after them and fight back against the oppressors. Because crime revisits itself and all that, history repeats itself. So you need this avenger, this community spirit, literally a community spirit who's an avenging angel to come back. Which is not what the Tony Todd one did. That's not how it operated in the first movie. He was an urban legend. You say his name 5 times, he'll come out and just kill whoever is foolish enough to have done that. But the whole point of this is that he is working for the oppressed blacks against the savage, elitist whites. And see, again, it doesn't work. You can see where I'm getting confused with this, where anyone would get confused with it. I've probably wasted too much time on it already, because I thought the film was okay. I did enjoy the cinematography as I thought I would. I did enjoy the music, which I'm playing now, which actually didn't sound anywhere near as good in the film as it does when you're playing it separately. I was kind of hoping it would have a bit more power, but it works more as a sound design and a few stingers, but it didn't really hook me. Hey! People say I throw these things together. But I wouldn't have walked out on it. I think the film has got a lot of value, a lot of worth, good performances. There's a few good shock sequences in it. Some of the killings are a bit more inventive. It's been talked about by quite a lot of people now. The high-rise apartment killing, where the camera pans out from the art critic who has suddenly seen the error of her ways, and she wants Anthony to come back because there's more killings and maybe there's an edge I can use here. So I'll look at your art again. After dissing his art previously, now she wants to talk to him again. But anyway, he sees Sherman in the mirror, does a runner, and in the background, when he leaves, the camera pans out for the high-rise window, and you see her literally flung up in the air and slammed against the window, and then dragged sideways along the window, leaving a huge blood trail behind it. And as the camera just slowly pans away, and that's an intriguing shot. The murder of the mean girls in the toilet in the high school, that's, again, a lot of it's off camera. It's all sound effects. One innocent girl is sitting in the toilet cubicle, and she hears the carnage taking place, and she's looking under her, and someone's a little compact mirror has skittered across the floor beneath the gap underneath the toilet door, and she sees, a bit like in the shot in Spielberg's War of the Worlds, where the tripods come up and the guy drops the camera, and in the camera lens you see people getting zapped. You see people getting dragged around and flung about, only in the confines of the mirror. I kind of like that. I mean, people don't like the fact that a lot of killings are off screen, but there's enough to it. If you're a gorehound, there's enough going on to enjoy in that aspect. And I like the way it's the arty-farty way that it is filmed, and using some of these different angles to get the killings across to you. I kind of like that. But you also do hear Virginia Madsen's voice, because Anthony does play the cassette recording, so you hear Virginia Madsen in it. So a nice hark back there. And the film definitely is, it does sit alongside the 1992 version. But whereas that was a flawed story in its own way, this tries to reinvent that, but creates many flaws of its own. Where'd you go with that? And I'm hoping the file just changed over quite seamlessly there. Oh, sorry, you always see this, me going like, it's because I can see when the time's about to finish and a new file begins, and I try to just stop now, finish the sentence now, and begin again. But it never works out. It'll look stupid. But hey, what the hell? It's all fun. So, Candyman, 2021. Was it worth going to see? Yeah, in a way it was. It was worth going to see because it's the first film I've seen since Wonder Woman 84 back in December 2020. And at least it's better than that. And it is better than that. But not by much. It's got some great ideas, but after being slow and measured for like literally four fifths of the running time, which is only short, 91 minutes, you then get this massively rushed kidnapping, abduction, soaring, hook in the stump, creating a new Candyman, cops coming in, stalk and slash, and it's done. You're like, Jesus, where did all this come from? Where did these cops come from? It's so really abrupt and on the nose when it should have been dealt with more. The badass cops are only seen at the very beginning, and that's from the past. That's a memory of Burke when he was a kid encountering the horrible cops outside. He goes down to the laundry room, he encounters Sherman, he screams in fear because he thinks Sherman is a killer when Sherman isn't, and the cops come storming in, mob-handed. Where did they get all the cops from? There was just 2 cops sitting outside. Oh, one standing there by the tenement entrance, and 2 cops sitting in a cop car. And like as the young bear walks past, they hold up a picture. Kid, you seen this guy? And it's a depiction of, you know, the Candyman, Sherman. And he just goes, no. But then encounters him, screams, how did he know? How did he know? Oh, that must be. Get 20 cops in. 20 of our worst, most bigoted bastard cops in. Just like that. And they storm down the corridors. They get the kid out of the way and they beat Sherman to death. Where were all these cops? This army of cops. So that's the beginning. And then you get this bunch of badass cops at the very end. And again, it's too on the nose. It's too in your face. The point being made that history repeats itself and it leaves a stain is great. That, you know, you build up over the remains of an old sort of a ghetto where terrible things happen. And you're trying to make, oh, we can forget about that now. It's all because now we've got empowered whites who are in there. Well, yeah, and the gentrification of an area. Yeah, well, that's relevant. That's got a lot of stuff which is relevant to now and today. So that makes sense. I get that. The idea of many different Candymen existing for each generation, I kind of get that as well. But wouldn't it work better if it was just Daniel Robitaille, the first Candyman? So whenever a generation in that area needs him to come back and save the day, just have him come back. Why is the hook got to be passed on? I just don't. It seems unnecessary. It seems adding more convolutions to a plot that didn't really need it. The plot that needed to be sorted out in the first place, because the basics you've already changed them. In the first film, he just comes out and kills whoever says his name 5 times. It's just stupid rules anyway, but it's an urban legend, so that's how it works within that context. Now he's a spirit which is reawoken and summoned to fight for the community. Well, that's not what he was to begin with. But the shadow play at the end of the movie, during the credits, you'll see in shadow depiction these puppets, all the different people that have been beaten by whites who then come back to be a Candyman for a generation, and that's quite nice. So it's got lots of visual, stylistic flourishes, and it's got some good ideas, some good performances. Music's great. The effects are reasonable, but it's a bit understated when it comes to the effects. I mean, the nastiest thing is body transformation. But again, what's the point of that? Why does that have to be the case? I don't recall that Tony Todd walking out, apart from when he opens his jacket up and he shows his desiccated ribcage with all the bees coming out of it. Well, but he wasn't hideously, disfigured apart from the hook. And by the way, a hook for a hand, a hook is not a good weapon. So slicing and dicing several coppers, ripping throats out. I can tell you now that when you plunge that into meat, living or dead, it gets stuck, because that's the point of it. Use it as a hook to bring things out. So a hook, which wouldn't have that, wedged into someone's stump and then strapped in there, is whatever you do with it, it's going to be an absolutely, completely clumsy weapon. It'll get stuck in every victim. I know. So what I'm saying, folks, is hook for a weapon, not a good idea. So I vowed I would come back and do the big spoilerific review of this, and now I have. So, folks, make up your mind. The film's probably come and gone in many territories anyway, but it'll be streaming soon. It'll be on home video soon. So I think it was an hour and a half, which I didn't mind spending. I did not want to walk out of this. I never felt that impulse whatsoever. I did feel that I was let down by the end of it. I did feel that all that build-up had gone for nothing, really. And there's talk of it. There's talk. I don't know how true it is. Of an extended cut of this. I could see that happening in the trailer. There are shots which are not in the finished movie, but that's often the case anyway. But this film would benefit a lot more from exploring some of the characters and developing some of the characters a bit more. It would make it a better character piece. It might explore the story a bit better, but the ending will not change. You won't be able to change that ending, so that's still going to be, where it falls apart. All that build-up for that rushed finale, where it was too po-faced, too obvious, too cliched, too horribly modern stereotypical, that you're like, oh, what? Is there any white people in this that were actually any good, apart from the gay brother's boyfriend? Were there any? No, it doesn't appear to be. They were all bastards. But, you know, and it's clearly, you think it's Anthony who's doing these killings, when it can't be. It can't be. The snobby critic, for one thing, he's left. We've seen him leave, and then she gets killed behind after they shut the door. So it's not him doing it. So this transformation, why does Burke need him to become a new Candyman when there's already one there? There's already one doing all this. I don't know. Did I get lost? I drank a couple of whiskies while I was in there, and I ate a big fucking huge hot dog. My God, it was huge. One of them. It was kind of rude looking at it. I didn't really want to, it was flopping out the ends of the bun. I was like, Jesus Christ. Well, it was touch and go who ate who, to be honest. But I prevailed in the end. So, I don't know, did I get confused watching it? Does it really matter? Is anybody really asked? Did anyone stick around to the end of this video? By the way, if you say Kilt-Man 5 times in the mirror, don't worry. I will not appear. Probably because I'm upside down behind the bar somewhere. But what might appear, there is it. If you say Kilt-Man 5 times in the mirror, a big bottle of whiskey might appear. Woo! So, that's where I'm headed next. And after drinking that, I won't want to look in the mirror. But, folks, I have been always shall be Kilt-Man. Please, watch what you say in the mirror. Look after your neighbours. Treat your community with respect. Don't subjugate any ethnic minorities. Be happy, be yourselves, and you won't have to worry about hook-handed killers coming for you. Anyway, please keep it Celtic, keep it Celtic, and I'm going to see you all in a mirror near you soon. And the stop button didn't work. Again.